Hey kids, it's Bobo here, and you're listening to the wildest, most far out, wiggling podcast, Anime Egotists. We love you, beauty.
And welcome back to the Anime Egotists, where we would not survive on the streets of anime.
No, we'd get our asses handed to us.
Yeah, even if it's nice people like Nicholas from Gangsta, like no, he would mess us up.
Yeah.
Anyways, my name's Alex, and my favorite attribute of Bakugan was always darkest.
I always liked the aqua or water one.
Oh yeah, no, Aquos was awesome too.
And I'm Richard.
And that's correct. And with anime, there are a lot of bad people who do some horrible things, but at the same time, sometimes they don't always stay that way.
Exactly. And I think we've mentioned that we both really do enjoy the redemption stories that we get in anime.
That's correct. And even if somebody is just a lost person and isn't even necessarily a bad person, just seeing them redeem themselves is always something rewarding to see.
Exactly. So today we're going to cover which has been a while, so it's to do a top 10 list, if I remember correctly.
Time's a flat circle, I don't know.
But yeah, we're going to be listing off our favorite redemption stories in anime.
That's correct. Now, it feels like you start us off a lot lately, so do you mind if I start us off?
Go right ahead.
All right. My first character who got a pretty great redemption, Sally from Black Clover.
Okay.
All right, so Sally basically starts off as basically an evil, terrifying scientist who's very fascinated by strong people. She works for the Eye of the Midnight Sun, and she's doing everything she can to basically help reincarnate the elves. Only problem, her squad and her end up dying and being used as basically sacrifices. But once they're brought back at the end of the arc, they all have to go to prison and atone for what they did. A little bit later, though, Sally gets out, and she starts helping around the kingdom, and people still don't trust her, and you kind of understand why. Hey, but ultimately, it's just a really cool, I guess you could technically call it a filler episode, but I don't really know at this point, where Asa kind of accepts that she really does want to change. And even in the movie, it's showing that she's working alongside the Black Bulls. Does she do a whole lot before getting destroyed? No, but it's a thought that counts.
I seem to remember because I've seen the start of her story. I still haven't caught completely up, but I still remember finding her to be that really interesting mad scientist. So yeah, I can definitely see her getting a redemption because she was one of the more interesting Eye of the Midnight Sun characters that we get early on, especially.
Yeah. And it's also kind of hilarious because you could argue the person she might have been the worst to was Asta, but Asta was still the first person to be like, hey, I accept what you're trying to do.
That can be kind of nice. And it's definitely, from what I remember, I mean, she does do some stuff at the start, because isn't she one of the ones that in the very first arc where she wants to experiment on Fugolio, is that his name?
She wants basically she wants to experiment on everybody. She's the one who invaded the Black Bulls hideout when Ghost, Gray, and Gordon had to all team up for the first time.
Oh, okay. I know which moment you're talking about. Okay. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting redemption arc. I need to catch up on Black Clover so I can know 100%, but I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I've met her voice actress. She's one of the sweetest people I've ever met, but I'm still scared of Sally. And she did a video where she said, "It's okay, Alex. Sally still loves you." I'm like, that's terrifying, but thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So are you using that as the intro to this video then?
It's not technically a shout out for the channel, but maybe I'll throw it up at some other time.
All right. So my first one?
Please go ahead.
All right. So I have Loxus from Fairy Tail. I've gone over his story a good bit. So pretty much he's always been a member of Fairy Tail. He throughout the start, first probably 2-3 arcs, he's always this pretty much jerk. He talks down to the rest of the guild, he always seems to view himself as so much better, and he is arguably the strongest member of the guild at the time. But in like the fourth or fifth arc, somewhere around there, he ends up fully betraying the guild. Pretty much, it's a fight for survival. The winners of this free for all among the guild members get to remain members of Fairy Tail when he takes over. And in the end, they manage to defeat him, and he kind of learns the error of his ways, but is banished and goes on kind of a journey of self-discovery. But he kind of realizes at the end that the guild is more like a family to a lot of these people, and that he was pretty much ruining that for everybody, and realizes that he's losing that as well, that his family connection to the guild is kind of severed. And he goes on this nice journey. You get a little bit of scenes from him, but he shows up during the S-Class promotion arc and helps save several members of the guild, kind of redeeming himself, and including in the eyes of his grandfather, who's the master of the guild, and managing to earn his spot back just by coming back and saving everybody. So it's just a nice little moment throughout. And then he gets to, you really feel that he's grown, because the next arc with the Grand Magic Games, he has, he actually faces his father, who offers him a chance to become like a member of their guild and betray Fairy Tail. And he mentions all that he's learned, and that the guild has become his family, and that he doesn't necessarily need his father anymore. So it's just a whole bunch of nice moments for him.
So is he officially a part of Fairy Tail, or is he just an ally of them at this point?
He is an official member. He's left when they disbanded at the end of part 2, but then when they reform at the start of part 3, he rejoins. So, but during that time,
are there other like hero guilds or good guy guilds, or is it just Fairy Tail?
No, there are other guilds. They kind of serve as more like rivals.
Okay.
They get like, you could consider like Sabretooth is the other one that's considered like the next best guild, and they were, how to put it, during the Grand Magic Games, they were a villain technically. They viewed everything as you have to be as the most powerful in whatever you're doing, and then that changes as they deal with the newly resurrected pretty much Fairy Tail Guild and how they're growing. So, but then in later arcs, they're now allies. And then there are like 3 or 4 others that are kind of the main allies with Fairy Tail.
Oh, okay. If we ever do a what would our powers or magic be in Fairy Tail, I have to ask about that. I'm like, is it cheating if we both just say the Fairy Tail Guild?
No, they're pretty well accepting of anybody who wants to be willing to defend everybody else in the guild. But there are other guilds if you ever look them up. There's Lamius Scale is one, Sabretooth is another, and just if you look up Fairy Tail guilds, they'll give you a whole list of all the other ones.
Just a heads up for Black Clover, I'm picking Black Bulls. There's because we don't learn that much about the others, but whatever. But you said his name was Laxus, right?
Loxus, yeah.
Loxus, okay. Yeah, I have heard bits and pieces about this guy, but I don't feel like outside of you, a lot of people have talked about him. But it's nice to know that he does grow and change in some senses.
Exactly. And again, a lot of his stuff might be like power of friendship or something to a lot of people, but I do feel that he does show a good amount of growth and learns from his mistakes. So that's why I put him on this list.
That's good. I can co-sign to that.
All right. So your next one?
Oh boy. Penny from Zatch Bell.
Okay.
Do you remember? I actually know. Every time I ask a question like this, you never seem to have an answer. But Penny was the girl with the water spells who fell in love with Zatch, but unfortunately, Zatch's amnesia made him forget all about her.
She's the is it redhead? God,
no, she blue like giant pigtails.
Okay, it's been way too long. I don't really remember. So
okay, so regardless, she ends up getting her feelings hurt by Zatch, even though he said they tell her multiple times, hey, sorry, Zatch lost his memory thanks to I want to say his brother, which apparently has a really good backstory, but that's another point for another day. Anyways, she ends up joining up with Zophis, basically wanting to take over the world and get rid of most of the Mamoto. But during the war they have Zatch kind of snaps her out of it, like saying, "What do you do? What are you doing? This is like, do you see how many people you're hurting because of this?" And they also just see that Zatch, YuGiOh, and everybody else are still finding ways of working together and are legitimately looking out for each other, while Zophis is, well, a monster, like a terrifying monster, Frieza-like monster. But it gets to a point where it looks like the gang is about to die, but Penny shows up, realizing the error of her ways, and it's a really short kind of redemption, and which is why it's pretty low on the list, but I still just appreciate it because she basically sacrifices her book as it gets burnt and her hair that she loves the way she looks. So she sacrifices her looks and her spell book and says, "Look, I did some horrible things, but all the other Mamoto I worked alongside with were brainwashed. Please find a way to forgive them." She's not saying, "Forgive me." She's not saying, "I still love you." She's not saying any of that. She's saying, "I'm sorry, I messed up, but please forgive the people who actually had no self-control as opposed to me." But as she's fading, Zatch says, "I forgive you. And so when we get back to the Mamoto world, I still want us to be friends." It's such a short redemption, but at the same time, it feels effective because you actually feel the remorse from her. And the fact that deep down she thought to herself, if he never forgives me, I understand. But I still thought it was compelling.
Yeah, I while you were talking about her, I did look up and I do vaguely remember. It's been so long since I've seen Zatch Bell, at least all the way through. I guess last time I watched, I only watched through like kind of the first like 30 episodes and then stopped again. So, but I vaguely remember bits and pieces of this, and yeah, I seem to really remember and that just knowing that she had that connection with Zatch, but then losing it or to her kind of drove her to this, but then pretty much I'll co-sign.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It especially sucks because she, out of everybody who bullied Zatch, she was never one of them. So like I said, I do not condone her actions, but you kind of start to feel for her. But like I said, she's kind of a character that's a bit of a guilty pleasure because I shouldn't like her as much as I do, but I kind of do.
Yeah, that's a really nice redemption for her. I do agree that just being able to for her to say sacrifice herself for all this and not beg forgiveness for herself, but beg forgiveness for all those that are not really in control of their own actions at this time. That's such a kind of hero thing to do. I hate to say that. That's the best way to describe it.
Has she done anything in the sequel? I don't think so, at least yet, but I'd like to see her again. Plus her spells are awesome. But Penny from Zatch Bell, not the most conventional one, but I still appreciated it.
Yeah, I thought maybe you were gonna go with I don't even remember their name, but the kind of the dark
Brago and Sherry?
Yeah.
I thought about it, but I don't remember their story as well. So I decided maybe another time.
All right. But so my next one?
Please.
So let's see. This is one that they fluctuate so much from being a kind of a bad guy to being a good guy in their story that, yeah, at least at the start, and it's Robin from One Piece. I've talked about how much I love her moment where she screams that she wants to live and they come there.
I thought you were going to bring up her backstory.
Well, I am, but
okay, I was about to. All right, just okay.
I still have to. That's the climax to kind of her full redemption because we finally get to know her story at this point, where starting out on the island, I forget what the actual name is, but they're the ones that can understand the ancient language. Her entire family, all of these scientists that she considers her family, are killed by the world government. She's goes on the run, is considered the demon child, isn't able to survive anyone. So she enters that very kind of a very dark place. Crocodile kind of becomes her one ally to keep her alive. So she starts working with him. So she's pretty much a bad guy in the Alabasta arc, but joins the Straw Hats. And I actually looked back on it she's kind of the only one that you don't get any knowledge about right when you meet them. Her story takes place, I mean, over that first 500 episodes of One Piece. Everybody else you get within probably 30 or 40 episodes of meeting them, you get their backstory. And except they do add stuff like with Sanji getting all his stuff later on, but you do know that he survived being shipwrecked with his chef father figure that he had. So just getting to know her backstory with all her sacrifices and all of that, and then her trying to save the Straw Hats, you know that she actually realizes that they care for her, but just it's such a nice moment. And then I just feel like she has one of the best redemption. I also debated putting Nami on the list because I like hers where she betrays them so early on, and then but you realize that she's trying to save her village. She's doing all this to try to do that.
I came dangerously close to putting Usopp on my list, but I'm just like, let me save that for another time.
Yes, I mean you could put like half the Straw Hat crew on this list. It's actually most. I think the only two there's not really any story for it yet is Luffy and Zoro and Brook. Those three are kind of the only ones that you couldn't have a good redemption story.
Yeah, I agree though. Robin has always kind of held a special place for myself and a lot of One Piece fans, especially since I don't remember the order of a lot of the stuff I saw One Piece in, but when I first saw her, I was just like, oh, she's kind of cool, kind of weird, but then you see how much sadness she's gone through, and now everybody loves Robin. She's awesome.
Yeah, it's such a nice moment. I mean, I think it's probably one of the most viewed anime moments. Probably if you go back and look it up on YouTube, is the one I want to live moment, because it's the first time that she realizes that the Straw Hats actually care for her and won't betray her in the future like everybody else in her life has.
Exactly. Hey, yeah. I'm glad we could talk about Robin again. And then again, when we talked about her backstory, you talked about it for about 6 or 7 minutes. That episode's a nightmare for both of us. It's not one of my favorites, but Robin's awesome. She deserves it. She's welcome on this podcast anytime.
Exactly.
Not sure when she'd show up, but still. Anyway, so my next one?
Go right ahead.
Tetsu Trudge from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds.
Okay.
I thought about saying Jack, but he's probably getting his own video someday. Trudge is the police officer for New Domino City. He's the guy who beat up Joey and Tristan, and then everyone said, oh, well, he grew up to become a police officer in 5Ds. I don't know if that's actually true, but I'll just believe it for now. But ultimately, he's basically a cop who's all like, oh, well, I only need to protect the rich. If the poor can't do anything to fend for themselves, why should I care? But thanks to Yusei and a lot of his friends, he actually becomes a much nicer person. He sees that Yusei, Crow, Akiza, and everybody in particular have been treated so horribly by the world, but still do everything in their power to help. So he doesn't have much of an excuse. And especially during the Dark Signers arc, he sees just how much they're going through and just how dangerous these duels can be. And then also due to some arm twisting, thanks to Yusei's foster mom, Martha, he starts to realize that a lot of people are suffering and only protecting a certain group of people isn't really what's important. He doesn't do that much compared to other Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters who redeem themselves, but he's always around and he's always willing to put his life on the line to protect anybody as the series progresses.
That's good to hear. I haven't seen enough of 5Ds to see his redemption arc, but I do know about his dark starting point where he's pretty much always seems to be wanting to stop Yusei specifically, because it seems like Yusei at this point is a troublemaker for him, but that's all he views him as. So
yeah. And I guess it's just really cool in particular because even he meets up with Leo, who's like 8, 9, maybe 10, and he always says, oh, well, the security are always super cool. Well, so he kind of thinks to himself, if I start acting horrible, well, that could rub off on the next generation. I can't be like that. And even in Duel Links, there's a pretty cool moment where if you beat any of the main characters as him, he'll say, The citizens shouldn't have to rely on you hoodlums. Not when they can count on me to protect New Domino City. And you can tell he means that from the bottom of his heart. He's like one of the only likable cops in the anime, or just in general. But I was really happy to see how far he came.
As I said, I really am happy to hear that. Yeah, and I've heard that same theory though that you mentioned at the start, where he's the bully from season 0 that beats up Tristan and Joey for to oh god, blackmail Yugi to give him money. So
Something like that. I think one day we're gonna have to give season 0 a chance and just talk about what the hell it was.
the greatest thing Yu-Gi-Oh ever did.
I don't know about all of that. That they gave us the Blue Eyes White Dragon jet.
Oh well, that's true.
So stupid. But anyways, Tetsu Trudge started off as a lowlife, but actually became someone who wanted to protect everybody.
I'll co-sign. I think that would be a really good redemption, and I'm seriously debating because I'm getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit that I'm gonna need to give either catch up all of GX or start 5Ds over again and give it a shot.
All right.
But I'll do my Yu-Gi-Oh character that I picked out, and it's Chaz from YuGiOh GX.
Yep.
He does have in my opinion, a really enjoyable redemption arc, but it also helps that he actually gets like dedicated episodes to his redemption arc and story. So in my opinion, a lot of characters, it's like, okay, he's kind of redeeming himself as the story goes on, and it's just kind of side for the main story. But this actually got like, what was it, 2 or 3 episodes where it's him traveling, trying to discover who he is.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna also add to that. I feel like with the way what you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is other characters in GX got dedicated episodes. Chaz got a dedicated arc, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, that's probably the best way of describing it. There's time to develop him from the generic bully who you learn, like a lot of bullies in stories, there's something tragic in his past, or some issue at home, which in this case is his 2 older brothers that are bullying him into he has to be the best. And you see his growth from that point where he is kind of accepting that he has to be the best duelist, so that he can control that while his brothers control politics and money. And which I mean, that's pretty much what if I work, it's what
the politics, finance, and dueling. All right.
Hey, I mean, based on how this world works, dueling ended up being probably the most profitable out of all 3. So
that is sad but true.
So you get to see that. But the thing with Chess that I like is that he doesn't become a perfect character or 100% a good guy. You see the next season that he is the founding member of the Society of Light,
more or less.
So he's still not infallible. So, which I feel like a lot of anime characters end up becoming when they go through redemption arcs. They become either goody 2 shoes or a full out hero. Chaz still has his problems, but he continues to overcome them throughout the series, and does, in my opinion, continue to grow from what I remember, what I've seen.
Absolutely. I always say Bastion's my favorite GX character. It might be Chaz. I really don't know at this point, because Chaz's story is so compelling. And it's especially cool because in one of the last episodes, when everybody's, I guess, I don't know if it's signing a yearbook or if everybody just sends a letter to Jaden, Chaz openly says, "Hey, run into me next time and we can duel," rather than him just being like, I don't care if you exist or not. Like, acknowledging Jaden did have a hand in that.
Yeah, and he gave us one of the best catchphrases in all of anime, and Chaz it up. So
Chaz man, Chazberry Pie, the Chazmania Devil, Chazalicious. It's so terrible.
And that's what makes it amazing.
Yeah, I can definitely agree though. I've talked about Chaz a lot, so he wasn't on my list, but he still has one of the best redemption arcs.
Exactly. And that's why, I mean, I would go back and just watch those episodes. I've done that before, so
No, same here.
that's why I had to put him on this list.
All right. So my next one.
Go right ahead.
All right. I've shown you the first couple of episodes of this show, so you might think, how the heck does this show have a redemption arc? But still. Habara from Daily Lives of High School Boys.
Okay.
Okay, so Habara is she basically when you first meet her, she basically kind of seems like the straight man for her group. She doesn't really seem all that interesting. She's just kind of a bland character. But we learn kind of later on in the series that she used to be a bully when they were all in middle school and elementary school. She was a bully who basically terrorized everybody in the school. And I don't remember specifically how it happened, but she ended up scarring one of the characters, which is why he always wears a hat. Think Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the manga, except like this is not quite as developed.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically, after they all team up against her, and and they basically get her to like settle down and stop. And one of the kids she ends up bullying, it's this kid named Karasawa, and it's gonna sound so stupid, but there are moments where she's around him, and she's like, he's kind of different around me. Like he gets nervous, and she thinks, oh, does he have special feelings for me? And then her friends point out, well, he sort of does, because whenever you try to reach and put your hand on him, he starts pulling his pen out to defend himself, because he got scarred. It's okay for him to be a little on edge when she's around. But at the same time, you can tell she's trying her hardest to be better. It still pops up every now and then that she is kind of somewhat of a monster, but she is trying to be better. She does feel guilty. And in one of the last chapters of the manga, she ends up saving him and ends up in the hospital because of it. And at that point, Karasawa basically says, look, I don't forgive you at this point. I don't know when or if I'll ever be able to forgive you, but for what you did, I don't think I hate you anymore. She never begs for forgiveness. She tries in some senses, and she could have gotten hurt a lot worse if this wasn't a cheerful manga. I don't know. I always found her story so interesting for a show that has boys trying on bras the first episode.
I'm starting to notice that, and I don't know if it's going to continue throughout, but it's a lot of our redemption arcs so far are the ones that have been not the ones that are begging for forgiveness at the end. It's that they try to accept what they've done and just move on and try to be a better person. And I do seem to, and thinking on that, I really do like that kind of arc. It's not, they understand that they may never be forgiven fully, but so I think this could be a really good redemption arc. As I think I showed you a couple weeks ago, Daily Life of High School Boys is on my Crunchyroll list to watch one day. I just need to find time to watch. It's a, what, 12, 24 episode anime?
It's 12 episodes.
Okay, I could probably knock that out once I have a regular week again.
It's so weird because I started watching. I'm like, oh, she's just bland. And I learned her story. I'm like, what the heck? Why did they throw this into the story? But it ends up being really compelling. Like to the point, and like I said, he still is uncomfortable around her, but in this weird way, you can tell she is actually trying.
That's really nice. As I said, I like that kind of story arc, and I do need to give this a shot because you've talked about it a good bit, and it seems like a good short slice of life story that's got a good bit of comedy in it.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of you in the main character.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Knowing you, it's probably not good, but I still like Tadakuni, but so who knows? But Habara, did I expect it or need it? Not necessarily, but I'm still happy to get it.
All right. So my next one?
Please.
Let's see. I'm gonna go with um Kakashi from Naruto. So while he never ends up as a bad guy or anything. He loses everything and enters a very dark place and starts kind of working with the bad guys if you think about it when he starts kind of supporting Donzo, who's trying to get him to pretty much rat on Hiruzen to when you learn about his backstory. But he slowly develops into a person who still cares for the village, still cares for everybody around him, and just ends up being eventually earning the ability and respect of everybody to become the Hokage of at the end of the series. So I just feel like through everything Kakashi goes through, he really does have kind of a redemption arc, because he does have that moment where he's lost his entire squad, all his best friends except for Guy, his mentor, his father killed himself. He pretty much learned from every person who ever touched his life and embraced it and became a good person and throughout the series.
It especially makes his friendship with Guy that much more beautiful, because people pretty much call Kakashi a comrade killer, but Guy never once gave up on Kakashi. And that makes it all the more kind of heartwarming that their rivalry is, well, as sweet and touching as it is, but also just as stupid as it can be sometimes with throwing pots and pans at each other.
Yeah, just that is one of the nicest friendships in anime, I have to say.
Yeah, but somebody also pointed out to me, Kakashi was not always the strongest, but with everything he went through, he never ran away from a fight. Like against Pain, he didn't run away against Orochimaru, despite the fact that he was terrified, and we never really got follow-up as to Kakashi versus Orochimaru, which was weird. But he never ran away when it was time. He never turned his back on people. And that ultimately was thanks to, you could even argue that was thanks to Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura.
Yeah, and just thinking about how his view shaped pretty much everybody from the rest of the series, where he talks about those that break the rules are scum, but those are that abandon their friends are worse than scum. That set the tone for the entire series from pretty much episode 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's also pretty much the only thing he teaches his entire squad, but that's another point for another day.
Hey, he taught them to walk up a tree.
Yeah, and then he abandoned Naruto and Sakura to be like, hey, Sasuke, let me teach you this really dangerous jutsu that you can only use twice. Please don't overdo it.
Yeah, but then he does the bell test again.
Do I even need to say any more to that? Look, my point is, overall, I love Kakashi, but he's a terrible teacher.
I have to agree. Yeah, he's got favorites, and he only teaches like one major lesson to the entire team. So
yeah, but his redemption was awesome. I will never argue that.
Yeah. So, all right, you ready for honorable mentions?
I guess so. I can start off with this one. All right, this technically counts as a redemption, both in show and technically out of show. So it was an honorable mention.
Okay.
Broly from Dragon Ball.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna get the meta one out of the way. Broly was terrifying when his first appearance. He was badass, he was scary, but there was still something cool about him. And then we learned that the reason he was the way he was because Goku cried a lot next to him. No. Oh, but Dragon Ball Super Broly gives him a reason to be like this. He and his father had to flee. His childhood was terrible. Oh, but ultimately in the movie, he ends up redeeming himself. He ends up shockingly, because I honestly thought he might have died. He actually ends up siding with Goku and Vegeta and everybody. And you think thanks to Frieza, because Frieza had a good hand in manipulating him. But it was just still so cool to see that they took a one-note, badass, yet incredibly stupid character and made him a badass, yet lovable old character who no one seems to have a problem with. for all the crap Super gets, everybody loves Dragon Ball Super Broly. It just did a really good job redeeming his character, and he himself redeemed himself through the movie.
I can 100% co-sign. I agree that while the first movie is okay, the backstory kind of ruins him in that. The next two Broly movies are not good, but this makes bringing Broly in and making him, from what I understand, he's might be in the manga now. I don't know.
I think he might be.
Yes, making him an official canon and having different abilities slightly than Goku and Vegeta, it makes a really interesting character. And now that he has the story of he had to flee due to his extreme power level with his father because he was going to be killed. It's just it adds something. It makes it actually a decent story overall.
Well, plus one of the best parts of the whole movie when Frieza's like, "Broly, your father's been slain," and then Broly realizes who the problem is and just decides to destroy Frieza. And one of the best moments in anime. It was incredible.
Yeah, I love it. Because doesn't Goku instant transmission to bring Frieza into the fight at one point, and then they instant transmission away to practice the fusion dance with Vegeta.
Something like that. And that's what I love. They took a character who, in execution, was really flawed and decided, let's fix that. That's what I like what shows do and movies do. Instead of taking a character who's already beloved and has gotten a lot and potentially making them worse, looking at you, Dawn, from Pokemon Journeys, let's take a character who really didn't get what they deserved and find a way to fix them. I love that.
Yeah, that was really nice, and I do hope we get to see more if we ever get a new anime that continues Super Story and because I think the Dragon Ball Super movie, if that's the next arc that would be adapted in the series, I would love to see it again in anime, maybe a little bit more time spent with the characters.
Exactly. So Broly both in and out of universe. And I'm just saying the next character I want to be brought to canon is Pikkon because he was awesome.
Yeah, that would be nice.
All right. So your first honorable mention?
My first honorable mention, I put Gin Ichimaru from Bleach on here. So his redemption comes kind of out of nowhere if you think about it. He's always been portrayed since his introduction at the start of the Soul Society Rukia rescue arc as a bad guy. He kind of looks that he literally has that kind of snake look to him that's in his design. He was portrayed as the one who stops them from just entering the 13 Court Guard Squad area by killing or injuring the gate guard. He's pretty much, you know that he's going to be a bad guy from that moment on. You think he's the one who's actually who killed Aizen when Aizen fakes his death. All this stuff. You get his story where he and Rangiku were friends in the before they joined the Soul Reapers. It's just, you get all this backstory and you think that, man, they're building it up that he had all this history and now he is betraying them, and it is several hundred episodes later, I think at least 200, when he finally pretty much tries to betray Aizen to save everybody, and you learn that he went rogue to stop Aizen, and he attempts to fight Aizen, but Aizen at this point is pretty much entered a god level of everything and kills Gin. That's why it's just kind of one of those things that, while I like his redemption arc, it's so kind of out of nowhere in my opinion, and that's why I put it as an honorable mention only.
I feel like at one point you said you wish he would have lived longer or just lived the whole time.
That might have helped if there had been a way for him to continue on, or if we had gotten more like if there's been hints that hey, there's a spy in Aizen's ranks who's feeding the Soul Society information. Just something that at least connected him that, or you start wondering, okay, who is it? Is it one of the Arankar? Is it Gin? Is it I don't even remember his name. It's the blind guy.
Yeah.
And
I know who you're talking about. I just don't remember the name off the top of my head.
yeah, it's been so long since I've seen his character. If I remember correctly, he's also killed, so or at least injured in the battle of the first kind of major arcs.
Oh God, please don't die.
No.
But I can co-sign, and I do remember he. It's kind of a weird redemption, and it kind of makes sense. It's an honorable mention, but redemption's redemption, I guess.
Yeah, as I said, I still enjoy it because we get more where he admits that he loved Rankiku and that he never really wanted to betray. He was doing this to protect everybody, and that's why I say I can justify putting it on as an honorable mention.
Yeah, I can understand. I can co-sign to that.
All right, your next honorable mention.
All right, Atsushi Maeda or Achan from Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto?
Okay.
While not outright a villainous person, Achan was kind of a delinquent, and he really didn't do that well in school. He picked on people with his group of friends, and he just smoked and was kind of a pain in the neck to deal with. Until he met Sakamoto, and Sakamoto bested him and his friends. And it got to the point where they kind of looked up to Sakamoto. They didn't consider him a friend at first, but they all basically decide, oh, we want to be more like Sakamoto, so we don't always have to rely on him like everyone else. It gets to the point where Achan stops smoking, he starts showing up to class, he's not outward picking on people anymore. It's just really cool to see because he's not really a character who I expected to get that much focus compared to, well, the titular character. You could honestly argue Sakamoto himself doesn't get that much focus compared to everyone else. But it's just really cool to see because Achan ends up becoming such a likable person down the line. And even when he has a slip up towards the end and wants to start bullying again, you can tell that's not really him. He's getting his arm twisted into it. And like a lot of other characters, because we won't stop talking about this, he doesn't beg for forgiveness for what he does towards the end. And people understand it, and he's legitimately sorry, but you can tell he's just become a better person. To when Sakamoto leaves in the end, he tells Sakamoto, we're going to be friends forever. Thank you.
It's really nice because I don't know if I could see it after like that first episode to start because he's such a stereotypical bully because in that first episode he pulls out the chair and you get the iconic scene of Sakamoto like sitting without the chair and all that, and he is that stereotypical bully, which it's kind of nice to know that he throughout the series strives to be a better person and be more like Sakamoto.
Yeah, I also just wanted to throw him on the list because the writer of Sakamoto passed away a couple days ago. It sucks, but I just want to throw some love because it really is a fascinating show. Despite Sakamoto himself, like it's a fascinating show.
I still remember enjoying the episodes we watched, but we picked it up right at the end of my senior year, so
yeah. And I thought, you know what? I don't know if I'll ever see him again. Let me just finish it. Oh God, that was a really good show.
Yeah, I know you've talked about it quite a bit, and I need to find out where I can watch it legally. And
Crunchyroll?
I don't think it's on Crunchyroll, but we can check later.
Yeah. But ultimately, Achan, he was pretty cool. And in the Japanese version, he's voiced by the guy who voices Gintoki and Gintama. So that always helps.
Yeah. All right. So my next honorable mention.
Please go ahead.
So I am interested to know what your feelings are about this character's redemption because we both just finished this series up and we've talked a little bit about it. Well, actually, a lot about this series lately. and it's Krona from Soul Eater.
My feelings on Krona are kind of complicated.
Yeah, there's a reason I put it as a honorable mention, because he does grow throughout the series to eventually want to be redeemed, but still allows his fear of his mother to keep him in kind of doing evil or dark things. And he does, unfortunately, do, in my opinion, he does beg for forgiveness and is told, we may never actually forgive you, but you can start by helping us rescue Professor Stein.
Okay, here's I agree and kind of disagree, because on the one hand, it seems like he's legitimately remorseful, but like, I messed up, I did a bad thing, and I did a bad thing. On the other hand, maybe I just clouded it, even though I literally just finished the series. I don't remember him doing anything after he redeemed himself besides be locked away for a good bit. I don't remember him actually actively helping all that much by comparison.
Yeah, I mean, his whole arc is pretty much, I'm evil, I don't want to be, I'm good now. Oh, my mom's still alive. Oh, I'm scared of her, so I'm betraying y'all and trying to corrupt Professor Stein. Oh, now I want to make up for that. Then pretty much going out and with his Stein's girlfriend and helping her recover Stein.
I loved Murray so much, but I'm like, God, y'all are a lot more forgiving than I. But I guess and another thing is, he's persuaded by his mom, but Erica's the one keeps showing up like, hey, are you going to listen to Medusa? I'm like, okay, first of all, Erica, why do you besides dying, why do you care what Medusa wants? That's in some cases. And second of all, like, I don't know, Krona is such, because I know everybody loves Krona, but I kind of feel like Krona's one of those characters I don't like as much as everyone else. Krona just is conflicting for me.
Yeah, he goes through so many little, like, times where he keeps turning back to being not necessarily evil, but controlled and entering his like dark and depressed state again. That's why I kind of put him as an honorable mention. In my opinion, he's an enjoyable character, and he does have a redemption arc, but I can understand that it's not fully complete. That's why it's an honorable mention.
Yeah, I think I like Ragnarok more, honestly.
Yeah, he kind of when he gets shrunken down to his smaller state where he's nicer but still kind of a bully. It's kind of hilarious.
Ragnarok's just like, my partner's completely useless, and I'm just like, we should hang out sometime. But I like I said, Krona's tricky for me, because I feel like Krona wanted to change, but we just never really saw it in some cases. So Krona's conflicting for me. Also, you kept saying he, and that technically might be accurate, but I just don't know anymore.
Yeah, I went based on, I think, I don't know. I haven't looked it up.
I don't know. Even Patty asked it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know either. But I'm right in the middle. I don't really know how I feel about Krona's redemption.
All right. So your last honorable mention?
All right. Shun Kazami from Bakugan.
Okay.
Okay, well, not a villain by any stretch of the imagination. Shun starts off as a happy child, but ultimately, like, his childhood was pretty rough. His mom ended up getting really sick when he was younger, and in the dub, she slips into a coma, but in the dub, she just straight up passes away. And ultimately, he loses connections with people. Like, he stops going out, he's stuck with his pretty abusive grandfather, and he stops talking to his best friends, and namely Dan. So it kind of causes a rift between the two. And while it does seem like in some cases he wants to, like, the villains might be persuading him to join up with them, he never quite goes that far. And thanks to Dan and everyone else, you see just how much he grows from it. He's still kind of his own person, a little bit of a loner, but you can tell, thanks to everyone, he really has come a long way. And it's why I love him and Dan's rivalry / friendship. They might be rivals, they might be polar opposites, but they also admit you're the best friend I have in my life, and I will never be able to repay you for what you've done. It's just really sweet. And rewatching the show, he needed some friends.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen Bakugan as well, but I seem to remember. I mean, he was very much the typical kind of shonen rival that, depending on the anime, he do it, pull a Sasuke and go completely evil on us for a little while, but eventually get redeemed, or kind of go a Seto Kaiba style where he isn't necessarily the bad guy after his first arcs, but uh, becomes more of a anti-hero. So it's good to hear that he's kind of follows that anti-hero route.
Yeah. I guess I just love him because he's not like he goes through a lot, but he's not edgy. Like a lot of characters just they try to be as edgy and like kind of unrealistic as possible. Shun's just kind of quiet in some areas. And he does have some funny moments, but that might just be the dub. I've been rewatching the dub, and I just want to tell you this one little, I guess, joke they tried to tell.
Okay.
So the kids are out, and Dan's dad's like, "So what's our son up to?" And his mom's like, "Oh well, he was across the city a couple of weeks ago, and about a month ago he was visiting his friends in another country." And Dan's dad's like, "Huh, that's really cool to hear. These kids these days get all the perks. I never got to go anywhere when I was a kid. Well, besides a school field trip to the morgue." I was like, "What? What is wrong with this show?"
Lucky I didn't get to go to the morgue.
That's hearing that really messed with me for the day. But ultimately, Shun, and I've been rewatching Bakugan lately. I'm actually really enjoying it. I'd love to do a video on it, but maybe we'll do a video on it if we throw ourselves into that universe.
Yeah, but we would just cover like season one.
Yeah,
After that, it
just
gets
season
kind
one.
of,
I'm not doing anything after that. I can't. I'm sorry.
yeah, because it's what, Vestroya or something. I
New
don't remember.
Vestroya? No, just like the first. I think it's like 51 episodes. Old. I think that's season one.
Yeah, because it even, if I remember correctly, even season one has like a nice ending because they even like they didn't realize it was going to have a season two, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and then apparently the last episode of like that whole series, it gets weird because Dan, I don't want to talk about it right now, but Shun, not an edgelord, not a villain, but he still had a good redemption, and I think it was really compelling.
All right. So my last honorable mention. So this one, I really enjoyed the first part of the series. I agree with a lot of people that the series gets bad as it continues. So uh, Nafumi Iwatani from that or The Rising of the Shield Hero.
Okay.
So I mean, pretty much he gets put on his kind of darker path in episode one when he's accused of let's say SA, and everybody turns on him. He's becomes a pariah to everybody because of it, despite the fact that it's a complete lie. And he's starts pretty much doing stuff that isn't becoming of a hero. He gets Raftalia, who's a slave. He treats everybody kind of badly, but always is doing good. And then it's as you go throughout the series and you start seeing these darker moments where everybody else is kind of doing these like they're doing the hero thing. They're finding food. They're finding for a village that's starving, but it's cursed. So the plant starts feeding on the people that are in the village, and then one of the heroes slays a dragon, and the dragon's corpse rotting infects the water supply and killing people in the village. And just all these like not being heroes in any sense. They're just doing it for the glory of the main action and not caring about the repercussions. And you see that Naofumi understands that everything that they do affects this world in some way, and he starts kind of redeeming himself in the eyes of the everyday citizens by actually solving the problems, not just putting a band-aid over a gaping wound or something. So, and then you get his final redemption when they defeat the Pope, and it's revealed that the king and the princess who accused him of SA at the start were in on it this entire time to kind of turn everybody against him, and but yet he stops them from being executed. They still get their comeuppance by having to be called what was it? Trash and bitch. I know it was one of I think is what she is like legally what she has to be called now instead of being executed.
I don't have a response to that. But you said before that this show kind of fell off. No one's talked about that.
Those that really enjoyed the start of the series, they all kind of agree that after the trial for the princess and the king, it kind of goes down after that. The story just gets how to put it, more kind of generic, unfortunately, is I guess the best way to put it.
Oh, okay.
So, but overall, I enjoy the first part of the story is his whole redemption arc, and that's why I really enjoy it.
Yeah. I haven't seen this show. I kind of don't think I want to based on the very first episode. I'm just like, no, that's going to make me way too angry. But she gets her comeuppance. Don't care. I would be I'm going to be way too upset by episode 1 to finish in some cases.
No, and I can understand that. So,
anyways, so I guess we're done with honorable mentions.
Yes, so we can move on to our final entry each.
All right, final entry, best redemption, Gaara from Naruto.
Okay.
This guy, look, you first meet Gaara, he's a monster. You're terrified. You hate him for what he's done to people like Rock Lee. But then you learn his story. He basically had the One Tails put inside of him, and we also learn at some point that the One Tails wasn't even that bad. It just, like Gaara, got put through hell, and that's what caused everything. Whatever. But he goes through so much in the case of his uncle trying to kill him at one point, him being responsible for his mother's death, and there's just so much about him because all the kids are terrified and hate him and call him a monster. And unlike Naruto, who meets people early in his life who tend to care about him, Gaara had nobody. Look, as much as I like Temari and Kankuro, they didn't really help all that much because they were just as scared of him as everybody else. But after getting beaten by Naruto, Naruto explains, I beat you because I'm fighting to protect people. And he ends up saving Rock Lee from Kimimaro in a really awesome fight. And it's at this point, we're still all kind of on edge. And in Shippuden, we learn he's become the Kazekage, which at first sounds ridiculous, but then you just see how much he's grown, how much he actually wants to protect people. It gets to the point where at this point, I no longer look at Gaara as, oh, he used to be a monster. I look at Gaara as the person who, I just look at him as a heroic person who everybody's grown to love.
Yeah, and you feel that he has gone from, I mean, he was in the same situation as Naruto as a kid. You see like scenes of people throwing rocks at him and telling him to get lost and all that, to there's legit concern and stuff when he's dies technically at the end of the first arc before being resurrected by because the village has come to love and respect him and understand that he wasn't just the One Tails and a monster. He was a person that was pushed to the breaking point. I 100% agree with that. Gaara has an amazing redemption arc.
And he also was like the lead person of the war, or like he gives that awesome speech where everybody believes in him. And it's especially kind of weird because it's grown to the point where people legitimately love him, and no one really talks about, oh yeah, this guy murdered a lot of people. That what I wanted to avoid the jokes of what they did with his hair in Boruto because I'm just sick of thinking about it. But ultimately, Gar just becomes such a well-developed, redeemable, loving character. Remember, his infinite Tsukiyomi dream was not I want to have a happy childhood. It's I want to have a happy childhood and I want to be friends with Naruto so he has a happy childhood. You can tell just how much he cares and loves Naruto for everything. And if you don't, and with knowing everything, you kind of get a little emotional thinking about how much he loves Naruto thanks to that.
Yeah, his redemption started when he finally met Naruto, someone who went through the same things he did, but took a different path in life than he did, where Gar became a murderous lunatic in his early teens. Naruto became pretty much just a nice guy who wanted to help everybody that he could, despite the fact of how he was treated.
Yeah, especially since at Naruto's wedding, you see him and Gar and Lee just casually talking and smiling at each other. And you're like, oh, that's right. These two have history. Kind of forget about that because Gar has grown so much. But Lee was also a factor in that because he forgave Gara instantly. It was Gar's redemption. If it doesn't get you at least a little emotional, we cannot be friends.
Yeah, no, I as I said, I 100% agree with this.
All right.
All right. So my last one,
please go ahead.
I put Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z on my list.
Okay.
So I started, I don't know how many people started with the original Dragon Ball and then went to Dragon Ball Z, and how many people started with Z and maybe eventually went back and watched Dragon Ball. But when you watched it in the original order, and Piccolo is the big bad for the original Dragon Ball series. He's the strongest character Goku ever has to go up against at that point in the series. All he wants to do is pretty much take over the world and become, in his own words, the Demon King. He's following in his father's footsteps in King Piccolo. And even at the start of Dragon Ball Z, he still wants to do that. He's not a good guy. He's just biding his time, trying to get stronger so that he can defeat Goku, because Goku's still technically stronger than him at this point. But it's kind of the little moments between him and Gohan where he starts to change at this point. He realizes that there's more than just taking over the world. He's still planning to, pretty much he's raising Gohan to be a weapon for him to take over the world at this point. But then you get to the fight with the Saiyans, and we always joke that Gohan never learned to dodge, but this is kind of the catalyst for Piccolo's real change to start becoming a better person, and overall, he jumps in the way and sacrifices himself for another person, which apparently is enough to redeem every evil deed he's done, which included murdering people when he was a toddler.
Yeah, I was about to say, and then he went to King Kai's planet. At the same time, though, his redemption is really good. But even in one of the games, he says in the Android Saga, "I'm only saving the world right now so I can take it over later." Which if they pulled that nowadays, I would be pissed off. I'd be like, "What the hell?" He's a good guy at this point. Mm-hmm. And you can tell he really does grow to care about the planet, especially when he kind of takes it on when he absorbs Kami, because Kami's like, all the stuff you've done, why should I let you absorb me with everything going on? And like I said, it gets to the point where he's legitimately a good guy now. A little scary sometimes, but he's still Piccolo.
Yeah, well, he needs to be. That's kind of his whole shtick, because he's the biggest in overall size of all the Dragon Ball characters, if I remember correctly.
I don't feel like looking it up, but you might be right on that. I will say though, I do kind of get sick of he's Gohan's father. I'm just like, oh yeah, he's Goku's done so much for Gohan, but I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, no, I'm didn't even want to really bring that up. It's just, and where he is now, I mean, he legit cares for all his friends, and he goes, I mean, they talk, I mean, he and the teacher know each other at Pam's school in the Dragon Ball Superhero movie. Like, she's like, "Oh, hey, Piccolo." When it's like he's a 8-foot tall green monster, pretty much, and he's picking up a little girl from school, and the teacher's fine with it. So you know that at that point he's reached the point where he's accepted by everybody.
Yeah, but it also created a new ship, and I'm just sick of people sometimes.
Yeah, that could be a little awkward, but
yeah. Then again, I also kind of want to just throw the movie in there, because in terms of power levels, it's also kind of redemption for him, because he was strong at that point, but he still wasn't that strong compared to everyone else. And then superhero happened, and you're like, oh dear God, he's relevant again.
Hopefully, from what I hear, they may or may not have added the powers to the manga. I don't know I'm not following the manga, so I don't know.
I don't know, but I can definitely agree. Piccolo's redemption it's just so good.
Yeah, it's one of those, and that's the thing. We talked about it before. He doesn't beg for forgiveness. He tries to redeem himself through his new actions.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I can co-sign the Piccolo.
All right, but you ready to wrap it up?
Yes, please. I'm hungry.
So am I.
All right, so ladies, gentlemen, and others, what are some of your favorite redemption stories in anime? Now, keep in mind, it doesn't have to necessarily be from villain to hero. It could just be somebody who lost their way, or someone who was struggling and then found a way to get better. Or it doesn't have to just be the usual villain to hero thing.
And, I mean, do you agree with our choices for our lists, or do you disagree? Do you not like any of these redemption arcs? Do you feel that they weren't deserved, or just weren't necessarily a full redemption?
Exactly. And please yell at us in the comments about Krona, because everyone seems to like Krona.
Well, we'll be able to go more into details soon.
Yeah. Next week's going to be interesting. But anyways, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, go watch all of our other videos. Have a pleasant day, and we'll see you next time. This has been Alex.
And Richard.
And you have been listening to Anime Egotists. Good night, and peace easy.